morning.
Yes,
Thank you.
First, let me start with Prof. Okay, so first, I hope both of you are well.
Oh, by God's grace.
Oh, great.
Someone said we did like we know they.
It's nice to see the two of you. I've been trying to arrange this with Prof for some time now, and I guess
about that.
you've been very busy with the work of the committee.
Yeah.
It's nice that when you were coming, you brought along Doc. Yes. So we asked for one. Buy one, get two free. Buy one, get two free. So we have two. And it's nice to host the two of you. First of all, let me start with you, Prof. Is your work done now? The committee's work?
Yeah, our work is done because we've submitted the report to His Excellency, the President.
Oh.
So what is left now is the presidency coming out with a white paper.
Okay.
That will give us a direction.
Oh, okay.
To what in terms of implementation. Okay. But our work as a committee is done.
You are done?
We are done.
So you play no part in implementing except for your new portfolio?
Oh, yeah. Well, once I'm with the ministry,
okay.
Involved. But we don't know what the president will decide.
Okay. Well, let me still stay with you. And Doc, I'll come to you. Okay. Well, first, let me start with exactly what you did over the period. First, let's start with your marching orders. What were you tasked to do as a committee?
Yeah. Thank you. The committee was appointed on the 7th February with the task of planning and organizing a national stakeholders forum that will look at education in Ghana. Look at what was going well, what is not going well, and what can be done to improve education in the country, with particular reference to quality education. So our plan was to ensure that we get as many people as possible within a limited time. We started off on the 17th of February, where the program was launched in Ho. After that, we held a national forum with about 700 participants. Thereafter, we decided to divide the country, 16 country, into 3 zones. And we had a northern sector, the middle sector, and then a southern sector. So we grouped each of the 16 regions. Everybody was had representation to give us. And at the end of the day, we engaged about 5,000 stakeholders.
5,000?
5,000 stakeholders across the country. We received about 2,000 submissions from groups and individuals.
2,000?
2,000 submissions from groups and individuals. And we organized a survey on free SHS. We had 20,000 respondents to that. So, obviously, analyzing the data wasn't easy.
I can imagine.
Yeah, data wasn't easy. And what was encouraging to me was the enthusiasm that groups and individuals expressed in that, to the extent that you may have heard with the faith bodies, for instance, the committee was accused, of not engaging everybody.
Yes.
Someone came to me that why do you invite a faith sector without inviting the Association of Traditional Believers? So the enthusiasm was very high. And we decided to meet senior citizens in education in this country. Were able to get personal Professor Ivan Sadai, who was a one-time Vice Chancellor of Legon, UG. We had Professor Do Bing, also a former Vice Chancellor of University of Cape Coast. We have the almighty Anamwa Mensah, who also chaired the 2008 Education Review Committee. Then we had Professor A.C. Sutherland Addy, who chaired the University Rationalization Committee, and all those things. And their input were marvelous. So we really got a very rich data. And at the end of the day, we've been able to submit a report. And I must say that I got a very committed team, committee members, who supported me. And so we've done our best, as far as the nation is concerned.
And I'll come back to you on this matter of, because if you're looking at, and you talk about enthusiasm. So I'm assuming the reception was far more than you expected.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot. You saw a lot of interest.
With student bodies, religious bodies, even market women and artisans in Kumasi went, Central, the Middle Zone team went. So they have to engage them. And particularly their opinions about the free SHS was marvelous.
Okay.
And you get students debating on issues like cutoff points from BECE to Central, and then the boarding day school. They debate, the decision that students, things coming from the students, probably you saw that people really saw that there was a challenge with our education system, and they feel that, yes, there should be some interventions to ensure that quality is enhanced, learning outcomes are enhanced, and people felt that, yes, education must be transformed to ensure our sustainable future as a nation.
So, and I'm hearing that you're talking about students, so which means that beyond guardians, parents, and all other stakeholders, you made time to speak to the students.
We targeted students.
Okay.
We brought together National Union of Ghana students with their, I think, 9 bodies. Yeah.
9 bodies.
And PRESEC. I always remember the PRESEC student group, the SRC group. You see, and so I said that it was something that people yearned for, and they had it.
Well, and I'll come back to the survey, but Doc, I guess an offer was made to you to be part of this committee. Why did you accept to join the committee? What was it about the work of a committee that interested you?
Thank you very much, and good morning to your cherished listeners. It's a call for, it's a national duty, right? I received a similar call in 2015 to come and support transformation of education, teacher education, which was very, very rewarding.
Okay.
So this call is also another national service call for me, and the desire of government to look into education, to find out what is working, what is not working, and how together as citizens we can actually broker a solution based on evidence. I think that was a key motivation for me to drop everything that I was doing to actually join the committee. And I have no regret for actually spending the time working with Professor ODURO and the team. And a lot of lessons have been learned, as Prof rightly mentioned. Engaging all the various stakeholders, listening to what they think can be done together to bring transformation to education for sustainable future of this country is very, very rewarding. Now, 5 thematic areas actually guided the team in our engagement. As Prof rightly mentioned, one of them was education quality provision. And we know that in some countries, in some jurisdictions, what normally happens is if you cannot provide quality education, you say you're wasting taxpayers' money. Right? Because money is spent, there must be quality. And quality education, what does it actually mean? I think during the process, we also try to understand that from stakeholder standpoints. The other one is infrastructure. We talk about 1 million students not living, having classrooms or studying under trees. That calls for a bigger conversation to understand why and what needed to be done. And talking about infrastructure here, we're not talking about the physical infrastructure, we're also talking about digital infrastructure. Right?
That's all part of
the engagement. Then the third thematic area that we look at was the education financing. All right? We know government spent a lot of money on education. You take free SHS, for example, up to 2025, about 25 billion has been spent on free SHS, but we still had problem.
25 billion.
Yeah,
that's what you found. That 25 billion was spent. On free SHS.
So that's what came up. But the allocation, majority going to food. What's happened that we spent such amount of money, but still there was a problem
with quality.
Quality. We come across data showing the level of examination more practice in the system. Why that? How can we find solution to that? Then we look at research. Research evidence for decision making. We know that education deals with a lot of data. A lot of decisions are made each day. How can we use data to inform the decision that we make? And the final one, which is, I call it the elephant in the room, is the regulatory systems, accountability, and governance. Now, you can have your infrastructure, you can have your money doing things in the school, education provision is going on, but if you don't have a robust regulatory system that's holding people accountable, and a governance system that's providing direction for things to be done the right way, we will not get anywhere. So these 5 areas were the areas that the committee actually focused on, engaging stakeholders, and the report presented to President last week, Thursday, actually provided issues that we gathered and the recommendation therein that we think if government working with citizens, I'm not saying only government alone, government working with citizens and other interested parties, we can bring the necessary transformation to our education system and create an enabling future for all of us to live as happy and flourishing citizens of Ghana. Thank you.
Very interesting, because I'm sure you were doing some consultation on education before you were called to be part of this task. And I'm wondering, what have you learned? Do you learn anything new about our education that you thought you knew, but you're realizing that perhaps there was so much that you really didn't know? What did you learn from this?
You're right. I spent since 2015, 2013 to 2015, coming in and out. But from 2015, seriously I've been involved in the education dialogue of Ghana, consulting on various things, curriculum development, leadership capacity development. We know that education leadership, for example, is one of the most important things, systems that we need to put in place in our schools for things to work. Because if resources are put in the school, curriculum in the school, and you don't have effective leadership, nothing can really happen. Now, one thing that we thought we knew, and I knew, that I actually realized I didn't know, is the level of, can I call it, autonomy taken away from school leaders. I think that's, I think that's something that's actually hit me in the face. I engage with school leaders, from principals, their deputies, the vice principals, leadership teams, and then come to senior high school level, engaging with heads of schools, and then actually providing training for them to build their capacity. But
you never knew they were powerless.
I never knew that their powers had been taken away from them. But during this forum, papers they submitted, and then engaging with them in person, the kind of thing they were saying was happening. I said, wow. So why were you quiet? It was disturbing for me generally. And I started tracing some of the things, interventions that we were putting in place, but they were not really working. And I said, is it because these people have made so powerless? They couldn't make a decision on anything. I think that was one of the things that hit me.
The power had gravitated back towards the center.
The center, right. So it was really, really a wake-up call for me, and start asking, I was chatting with Prof this morning, that I think we always need to be asking about what is behind the data. Right? Numbers are thrown at us. Right? And the second thing that also came out is the level of examination malpractice. It's something that
at what level?
At senior high school level and junior high school level, examination malpractice.
The level of examination
malpractice is another thing that came out very clearly. The data shared by WAEC indicate that we had 10% rise in examination malpractice 2023.
Okay.
And talking about this, in terms of raw numbers, we're talking about 587,000 subject papers, right? 587,000.
Wow.
All right. And about 10,000 papers being cancelled outright. AI-generated answers being identified, that students write essay and the essays are the same. Objective questions answered, all the students getting a particular one wrong. So these things came up. I didn't know that they were happening, the extent to which they were happening. Okay. We know that the examination practices are always be there, but the level at which they are now, it's serious. It needs serious attention. I think I'll leave these two there.
Yes. Yes. And I'll come back to Prof. And I'll come back to you. Because those two are, so for example, if now it means that they are getting even ahead of the lecturers. They don't really have to go to look for leak examination papers. What they need to do is just know the answer and make sure they have a gadget that has AI on them and be able to put the questions in there and just write whatever answers the AI provides them. That's quite interesting. But I'm still going back to the beginning with Prof, and then we'll come back to those issues. Now, so you said two things. What was right? What was wrong? So
and where do
what
we go?
was working?
Yeah.
So first of all, let me start with, what did you find was at least working for us?
Well, engagement with stakeholders across. What was working for us is access expansion.
Okay.
Even though we still had a number of children out of school, we still have some dropping out.
Okay.
Access expansion was one of our strongest achievements.
Okay.
What was not working for us is the issue of quality and equity.
Okay. Quality and equity.
Equity.
Okay.
Particularly with schools operating in less endowed context.
Okay.
Rural context, rural-urban context.
Okay.
In terms of physically challenged in our schools.
Okay.
So it was not working, quality. So going forward, we generated over 316 recommendations. But we landed on 212 after. Yeah, so
316. 212.
Yeah, the committee.
I'll come to that because that's a lot. How you decided from that number, which one you thought was relevant, how you maybe narrowed it down to the over. Even the 200 is a lot.
It's a lot.
But first, let me start with, you said access expansion.
Yeah.
Exactly what do you mean when you say that? When you say access expansion, what were we doing right? Because then you are still also talking about even the quality and equity. But first, access expansion. How were we doing it? Were we getting even that one right?
Well, in terms of as to whether we're getting that one right, the fact that there was increase in enrollment from one point, take the free SHS, for instance, if you take 2015, the enrollment level compared to 2019, 2021, you saw that there was a vast increase. So that itself is a plus. But as to whether the increase was indexed with quality, that is an issue.
So we are getting a lot more children into school.
Okay. But then what they needed to help them develop qualities that will make them benefit from further studies, qualities that will prepare them for the world of work, qualities that will prepare them for adult life. If we bring all these things together in terms of personality development, then we find question marks coming in. Now, you take the free SHS, for instance. Access, fine, but how did we get to that? And from stakeholders, I was surprised. I didn't know that some parents had more information. One of the issues that came out was the cancellation of cutoff points. Okay. Which was previously used to control number of people who could get into. But that was cancelled. And once that was cancelled, then you have so many people going through. But there was no provision made, to ensure that the different people who get to the schools, they were catered for. Those who are slow learners, what did we put in place to ensure that they are supported to cope with the trend? And so that was an issue.
The cancellation of a cutoff point.
Cutoff point.
Because there were many people who were asking questions as to how they'll fit into, because there are some schools that are seen to be more competitive environments. So the schools seen as grade A schools, there's an assumption that if you're able to qualify and get in there, you have a certain level of intelligence. So the way they train you is different from those of us who had be grade B, grade C, among others. You are saying, even though they're taking away the cutoff point, and somebody who had performed poorly can get in that competitive environment. There was nothing done to cater for their needs.
For instance, someone with, let's say, Abrobebon JHS. Who had access to Wesley Girls. The culture of Wesley Girls is different from that of Abrobebon Secondary School, something like that. So to help that person to adjust to the cultural environment itself needed special intervention. Did we have this across Class A schools to cater for the young ones who are coming up in terms of their study habits? There are people who have attended junior high schools. They've been introduced to complex computers and all those. They are very used to it. You have someone from this place who perhaps wrote his or her exams with improvised, how do we call it, mouse. Improvised mouse, And now he or she is in Wesley Girls. What scheme did we put in place to ensure that that person is catered for? So we experienced expansion, but we did not put in measures that will help people to cope with the trends. So far as individual schools are concerned, that was a big gap. One of the things too, as Sam said, the shocks. One of the things that came out strongly from submissions, particularly from the Directorate of Education, Conference of Directors of Education and others, was the dysfunctionality of our decentralized units within the Ghana Education Service. Leading to a situation where someone said, Directors of Education have become Simpapeni using the fancy ceremonial heads.
Really?
Yeah.
They had no power?
No power.
And they were just occupying the position.
And especially from the faith-based schools, where managers of schools complain bitterly that people are posted to their schools, they are not aware. There are others posted to the schools, you are aware, we engage them, you have plans for them. You follow up to the school only to learn that the person has been transferred. You are not aware. And so that, in effect, affected leadership, regulation, and accountability. And so one recommendation that came out very strongly is that we should decentralize operations of the Ghana Education Service to empower district directors, regional directors, because they are on the ground, so they can actually supervise, monitor, and feed the center. Some people have different opinion. And basically, this different opinion is based on the fear of corruption. They said some have written an open letter I saw written to the president. It's arguing strongly. He said that any decentralized attempt will be promoting corrupt practices.
Okay.
And well, this is what I'm going to say now is personal. It's not coming. Yeah, but I think that centralized corrupt practice is very difficult to control. Decentralized corrupt practice is very easy to control.
Okay.
Because you have the center. If the systems are working well, you can easily control decentralized corrupt practices. But if the corrupt practice is centered, who controls that? It is worse. You know, and we've had cases. This one came up during the interaction when people were complaining that people have to pay between 15,000 and 20,000 for recruitment at the center.
15,000
and 20,000 cities.
For recruitment, as in teachers?
Teachers who have passed their teaching licensure and 15,000 and 20,000 cities. And it came up strongly.
I see.
Now, if these things are being done at the center, it simply shows that systems were not working, not working. And so if we decentralized and put in systems that will control the decentralized units, then we'll be in a better position of controlling corrupt practices than it is. So one strong recommendation is that let us empower our districts when it comes to recruitment. The center should get the evidence, statistics. How many maths teachers do we need? Which schools do we need them? Then clearance should be given. Let the district regional directors do this, and then the district director do the deployment. Okay. Because they know where the needs are and they can control. So that's one of the things that actually came out.
And that deals with, Doc, the issue you raised about a lot of power being concentrated in the center instead of. But was that? And I wonder how interesting that was to you, because you have a whole structure that's in place. District director, you have all kinds of supervisors and things. You go and do this and find out that all these people are just occupying positions. They are not actually allowed to play their role. In a free SHS system, we understand that is even particularly bad because it goes all the way to the headmasters. That was the impression we got from being in the press. Did you get that impression too? That even headmasters, the free SHS, you are not supposed to do anything?
We got it. Yeah. And that's one reason it was proposed strongly that headmasters, bases, and I've forgotten the third, domestic bases should be empowered to actively participate in procuring food items. And the idea behind this also is to create job opportunity for the locals. Instead of centralizing and then bringing things. At times, some of the food items you don't need, but then it comes and you have to take it. You see? So my brother, one of the things as a nation we need to do is how to strengthen our systems. Until we strengthen our systems within Ghana, the Ghana Education Service, and then the Ministry of Education, we will put in so many interventions, but the story will be the same. We need to empower our districts to perform well. Let's strengthen them and monitor their work. Let's ensure accountability. And I think that this issue of corruption, for me, a centralized corrupt practice is worse than a decentralized corrupt practice. But the central one can be controlled.
Do you hold the same view?
Yes. I think, talking about the senior high, there was an appointment letter that was given to heads of schools. I think back in 2018, and then some have it 2021. When you read the last paragraph of that appointment letter, simply put, as a head, you cannot challenge anything that's come down to you. You cannot critique. That basically is do as you're told, and if you're not ready, then you're out.
Even if what you see on the ground
clearly
contradicts what you are being told.
Yes.
You cannot say anything.
You cannot say anything. So heads of senior high schools have meant to just cross their arm. So we ask why high level of indiscipline in our schools these days. It's because they don't want supposed to. Their power has been taken from them. So I totally agree with what Prof is a, this is why we also say that sometimes we say the fish spoil from the head, right?
Yes.
When a fish spoil from the head, then everything else, right? The other thinking is that if the middle of the fish, something is done to it, then when the top can spoil, but when it's coming down, it might get to the tail. So in this situation, we have the national level, we have the district and regional level, we have the school level.
Okay.
Now, if you have a robust, as Prof said, the system is working.
Okay.
You have a robust middle level,
okay,
the middle tier,
okay,
the district, the region,
okay,
working effectively. The school level will function effectively.
Okay.
But if you are concentrating on the top and the top is rotten, we see it in our classrooms.
Okay.
It's as simple as that. You asked the question earlier, what are some of the good things that we've seen? One of the things that we've also identified is a willing and committed workforce.
Oh, okay.
Right. Generality of our teachers are committed. They want to do the work.
Okay.
But again, it comes down to their powers being taken away from them.
Okay.
And this also translates to the resources that are made available to them to do their work. So it makes it difficult for them, for their creativity to come out. It makes it difficult for them to even manage their classrooms, because they are scared. If I do something, they will descend on me. I will be posted to a place that I don't want. So, let me just do my minimum best not to get into trouble, in quotes. So that's another thing that we actually found in there. Now, if you have a committed workforce and the system is working, then all that you have to do is to empower them to deliver within a clear-cut accountability system. And that's what we're talking about. If we want to transform our education system, then we need to look at these dimensions, right? Empower your workforce, create a framework for them to operate. If they understand clearly these are the things that are accepted, not accepted, you don't have to be there 24/7 checking them whether they are doing it or not. They will do the right thing. It's not something that Ghana has not done before. Ghana has been the black star of education on the continent, right? People come from other countries to school here because the quality of education that time was top-notch. What has happened at the moment? And at this moment, what we are interested in is chunking out numbers and say, this pass rate, that pass rate. But critically, are we saying that the individuals who are coming out of our school system with those pass rates actually did the work themselves? Because we engage some of them, they cannot even construct 2 sentences correct. They couldn't even write their names. So there is a call, a national call for all of us to say, what kind of education system do we need that will enable us to function globally as some of our citizens are doing? And that's where the foundation is very important. So another thing that we have learned is that we talk about performance at senior high, but we ignore the foundation. Right? We ignore the foundation. We've not put a lot of enough resources at the foundational level. But we know that if you are constructing a building, which education actually typifies, that a foundation, you build on it, then you go to a roofing level, you finish your degree, right? But if the foundation is weak, we'll see what we are seeing in our senior high schools, and we'll see what we are seeing in our universities. Now, when I talk about something more practice earlier at the senior high level using AI, it's not the students who are actually, we have factors. Teachers are motivated, because something has also happened is heads of secondary schools are giving performance targets.
Performance targets?
Yes. So if you score 40% this year, they say next year you have to score 50%. In this time and age, how do you give a target to a school just based on the cohort? The cohort that got 40%, they're not the same people who are going to be writing the exam the next year. So why do you give them 10% increase? And then if you are not able to perform or you're unable to achieve that, you are name and shame. All heads of schools are called together, they call you to a stage. This is what they say. They call it stage and shame you. The next time, what will you do? You have to find ways for your student to pass.
Oh. Right?
But then in reality, we know that in education, one of the principles we are taught is that no two child is what? The same. Yeah. Even identical twins are not the same in ability. That's what we call something differentiated learning, right? And differentiated teaching. So why should somebody who is an education administrator set a target for schools just based on previous year performance, not taking into account the attributes and the characteristics of the current cohort to determine what targets should be given to them? Because the entry behavior is not the same, isn't it? The people who finished last year, they might have entered with 66666 from BECE. But the current one, there might be some 50, they're 45. And why do you just give them, because you got 40, you get 50 next year. You get 60 next year, get 70 next year. It is impossible. We don't do that.
Without doing an assessment of the group of students they have available to them in that year.
Yeah, to know the baseline and I set a target. We don't do that. We don't just set arbitrary target for heads.
And that's so the heads have to do everything they can to meet that target.
Meet that target.
Prof want to make a...
Yeah. So I think all that Sam is trying to say is that our target setting must be evidence-based. Let's get the evidence. Let's know what went wrong. What conditions do we need to set in order to add value as we move ahead. When we do not do that, and it just comes from the center, next year, want you to get 50. If you don't get 50, you'll be penalized. Then people will find other ways, as one teacher put it, to inject the students. He said, "Oh, Prof, you see, we need to prove to the ministry that we are working. And where we find out the children are not doing well, you inject them." And I asked, "What do you mean by inject?" So we prepare the materials.
So even this, where I was thinking was the students were now finding AI equipment.
No. It's
actually
sometimes some places is the community, right? That come together, right? Now, some heads will tell you currently, even currently, the registration that going on. Some heads are mentioning that some students have not registered in their school. Do you know why? Because in that school, they will not allow them to cheat.
Invigilation is strict there.
Invigilation is too strict.
So they can register in another...
They register somewhere, and then that place, they will allow them to cheat.
So the injection comes
in there.
I see.
Right? And one head was saying that, they even label him, he's a Pentecostal church elder. They say, you Pentecostal church elder, you cannot allow your children to. What kind of God are you worshiping? Which has got strong head, right? Your head is too strong. Wickedness. Christians are not wicked. Pentecost, why are you so wicked?
Because he will not
allow them to cheat. So now, even as you're sticking to your values, you are being labeled. Even your religion is being called to disrepute. And this is where one of the recommendations that came out strongly is we moving towards a value-driven education.
Value-driven education. What does that mean?
So we need to bring back our values, cultural values, values of integrity, honesty, patriotism, back into the curriculum, frame the curriculum around the values. So talking about the fundamental education I was talking about earlier, I was talking about foundational literacy, language literacy, foundational numeracy. Then we talked about foundational scientific literacy and a foundational cultural literacy. If we're able to do that as a basic, and then they grow up with it, and then the curriculum is framed so that this is done throughout the whole education system, at least our citizens will come out.
So the assessment will be whether or not we produce the students that has a certain set of values.
So if you look at that, Malaysia did the same thing, and their philosophy was very simple. What's their philosophy of education? Basically, to produce good people. That's it.
That was it.
Good people, right? Discussion in Ghana from 2013 is for us to prepare to nurture honest and responsible creative citizens.
Okay. Honest, responsible, creative
citizens. That's how we frame it from 2013. Now, how is it working?
Okay.
How is it working up to this point? So it's not that we don't know what to do, but consistency of doing it is another area that we need to look at.
Okay.
So from that time, then come 2017, the basic education curriculum was reviewed.
Okay.
That philosophy was in there.
Okay.
And the curriculum was framed around that. How was it implemented? Were teachers given the resources to implement what they need to implement? Okay. And those students who were part of that, they are now in junior secondary school, going to senior high school. So you can see that sometimes we are very good at putting things on paper, but when it comes to implementation, we struggle. And this is why you asked the question earlier, what motivated you to accept the call?
Okay.
I saw genuinely a government that is willing to engage citizens to find solution.
Okay.
Right? Sometimes the political class can assume that they have this answer.
Okay.
So the moment it's in the manifesto, they are voted, the social contract is signed, we can just get on and implement it.
Okay.
That's a wrong notion. Okay. So if a government says, okay, I've put this in the manifesto, all right, but now that I'm in power, I want every citizen to make input to find a solution. I saw that's a very genuine. No. And then from now up to this point, the zeal, the collaboration, the engagement, actions being taken already gives me an assurance that it's not going to be, they're serious about what they are talking about, and they are going to implement what we've put in the report and they're not working alone, because clearly there's a clear indication that they'll be engaging continually with citizens, especially people in the education environment, to understand what they are implementing, whether it's working or not. If it's not working or not, what changes they can make? Because we know that social science and the individual in the classroom, we are not robots, right? Our behavior changes every time. So what we say this year will be the solution. Okay. Next year it may not work. So if you don't engage continually, you'll be making mistake. So the seriousness of government to continue engaging citizens to bring solution to our challenges, I think that is class one. Number one, and it's fundamental to we all bringing development to this country.
Well, Dr. Sam AWUKU is member of the National Education Forum Committee and an independent education and development consultant, the man who chaired the committee. The interesting thing is that, Prof, correct me if I'm wrong, you were on the manifesto committee of the NDC?
Yeah, I was the chair of the education committee.
You chaired it?
Yeah.
But Prof, you've been lecturing for so long. You've been training teachers for so long.
Yeah.
So people usually assume, and the MPP criticize, and they pointed that out, that the people who are seated there can make their own recommendation. They can propose policies. Policies that can work because they understand the system. And Prof, nobody will question your understanding of the system. Professor Nana Jinopoko Ajiman was running mate to the president at the time, now vice president. There were many other people on that committee who could have come up with their own suggestions. Why is this matter of engagement? Because the very first thing you're doing when you enter into office is, let's engage everybody. Why was engagement so important?
Thank you very much. It boils down to leadership. Leadership that is top-down, I know it all, model of leadership. Okay. And so in that case, you don't need any consultation.
Okay.
Whether the context is good or bad, you implement, you push your ideas through. Okay. The other one is leadership that is democratic enough, leadership that embraces divergent opinions to ensure that what we say we want to do, is it that which the people really need?
Okay.
That's big question. Because in implementing and sustaining any good implementation, you need a buy-in of people. And let me use the free SHS as an example. The idea of the free SHS was perfect.
Okay.
Very laudable. Okay.
I've heard people say that over and over again. When you say the idea of making senior high school education free was laudable, what do you mean? Parents have to make some contribution to the training of their students.
Yeah, but the idea, everything that is free, is embraced by anybody.
Okay.
Oh, see, the philosophy behind it, if I remember, it was before the introduction, it was observed that about 70% of those who could not enter secondary school did so because of money. They couldn't do that because of money.
Okay.
So the idea behind it was to bridge the gap between the poor and the rich. That was the idea.
Okay.
And that idea was laudable. Okay. Now, in terms of implementation, this is where manifesto now seeking the buy-in of people.
Okay.
In terms of implementation, how did parents understand the concept of free in the free SHS?
Okay.
How did they? How sure were we that the resources of the nation could sustain free SHS?
Okay.
How sure were we that we have teachers who could deliver curriculum content of the free SHS across the different divides?
Okay.
How sure were we that we have leaders who had internalized the principle, the philosophy behind free SHS?
Okay.
These you cannot find solution to by virtue of you being a professor. Okay? You need to get in touch with the people. For them, parents, and that is why the initial stages, there were divergent opinions that came up.
Okay.
I remember the former finance minister himself coming out to caution against the across-board free SHS. And I remember you saying that he could pay about six people. Dr. AWUKU also came to caution. And some of us at that time also came to caution and we were lambasted, and others. You see, if you want people to own a policy, then you engage them.
Okay.
And this is one of the things that was very, very, very lively about the engagement that we have. When people felt that their opinions were respected.
Okay.
They had the chance of contributing to a policy implementation. When a sense of ownership is created, implementation becomes easier. And we reduce the challenges. Free SHS, if we had adopted the model of engagement, the challenges we encountered wouldn't have been as huge as it was. So the fact that you are a professor, you are a leader, you are a president, excuse me to say, doesn't mean that you know it all. You know it all. The Evers have a saying, I try to use that, said, Nunya adidoi ashima sunio. Knowledge is like the baobab tree. No one person can embrace it.
Okay.
And that is why you need to get a buy-in of people.
Well, but and then I'll stay on the matter of SHS, because when you said you're doing consult, and I'm sure it was the biggest thing that people wanted to discuss. When you had the engagement, did you realize that people's interest was towards that more, the matter of free SHS?
Oh, yeah. Across board, people's interests were that. And one of the things that came out strongly, people were so much concerned that we had focused on the middle level, senior high school, to the neglect of basic. That came out very strongly because they said, like Sam said, if you don't get the foundation right, all the others, they may look very nice, but they will not make the required impact.
So people were concerned
about that.
That focus.
Okay. That focus. Now, the other thing that generated much debate and very interesting as to whether we should continue with the boarding system or the day system.
The boarding system.
The boarding secondary school system or adopt a day system. In fact, I think we had 3 different opinions coming out.
What were share with us the
first one was that, look, abolish the boarding system
Abolish it altogether.
Altogether.
Okay.
And concentrate on day school systems so that you can provide quality education.
Okay.
The second one is that don't abolish the boarding system. Let it remain alongside the day system.
Okay.
But use a voucher system based on the cost of providing a day school education, and then give it to everybody. If you want your child to go to the boarding school system, top up and send your child.
Oh, okay.
The third one was that maintain boarding and day. Provide one lunch for day and boarding.
Okay. So everybody
fit well.
Okay.
And then allow those who are in boarding, parents, to pay for breakfast. And then these were the three.
Very interesting proposals.
For us as committee experts, we also think that the boarding system should not be abolished.
Okay.
It should operate alongside the day school system because it has its advantages. Okay. Social cohesion, even national character identification, all these things. Some of us, we didn't get the opportunity of attending secondary school because I don't have a secondary school mate. Okay. But no, I don't have a secondary school mate. I didn't go to secondary school.
You did not go to secondary school?
No.
Anyway, let's continue. I'll come back to that.
But the little I had from teacher training college, it helps me develop a national identity. Okay. It helps me to respect other cultures. Okay. It helps me to respect other religions. Okay. It helps me to see my fellow person from the lens of human being, and that is that. So we're saying that there could be three progressive approaches. Okay. In the short term, we're proposing that government should continue supporting both boarding and all those things, but the mode should change. Okay. Now the support is from Get Fund, and that is being done at the disadvantage of tertiary institutions and then basic institutions. Okay. Let's go back to the earlier process where petroleum levy was used. Okay, that's the first. The second one is, we have property rates across the country. How effective is the property tax rate? How effective are we able to generate fund for that? Can you make that a focus for generating money to support boarding and day? Okay. Then the third, in the long term, we're saying that, task the statistical service to undertake a means test. Okay. And then based on the means test, categorize those who can pay and those who cannot pay. And then allow those who can pay to pay so that you can concentrate on those who don't have. Because at the end of the day, the whole philosophy behind the free SHS is to bridge the gap between the poor and the rich. Okay. So why wouldn't you do that? So these were the things that...
Very interesting proposals because, to be very frank, I lean more towards the lunch for everybody.
Oh, okay.
For breakfast and supper. It sounded quite interesting as a proposal, but you're also saying we should look at whether or not it's possible to find those who cannot pay and cater for them in the long term. Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. In Ghana, people don't like hard work. Asking them to do very, 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 very hard work. Yeah. But and that's just quite interesting. Some of the proposals you got, and I guess most of them really surprised you.
Oh yeah, some of them were surprise to me actually.
They took you by surprise.
By the surprise.
I think the other one about the cutoff point.
The cutoff point, I was students,
So the cutoff point, the students themselves were even divided on
whether or not
there should be cutoff point. Cutoff point be introduced, making sure that everybody is there. Everybody, some people are excluded, right? That's the student's standpoint. It's not inclusive enough. You are going to create a system where people will think they are failures, and then they are not included in the school system.
Okay.
They will become people who will be helping you spend your money, right? You exclude them. They couldn't continue education. You go, finish, work, get your money.
And then come and share with them.
They will come and help you. You park your car, they will find a way to open it, right? And get in and get whatever they want to do.
I get what you're saying.
They'll break into your house and then do because you.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Yes. So they'll help you spend your money. Then you open it up, everybody goes. Then what they say is that you create pathways, right? The person may not necessarily be good at grammar system. Can they be in the same school but focus on the vocational system because that's what they can do, so that everybody had the equal opportunity to develop their full potential. And that's what came up. Then during validation, because part of our engagement, the last engagement we did was to validate all the accommodation, the issues that we gathered throughout the nationwide engagement, the materials we got, 200 of them, going through them. What are the key issues? And cutoff was one of the hardest ones. So it was also opened for validation, and at the end, you had to cast a vote. And it was very close, right? The people who are for is 46%.
46%
for cutoff points. And their reason is basically the understanding that because of cutoff, because of removal cutoff, right? That's what brought indiscipline to the system. That's what's lowering education quality. Because teachers are not resourced enough to manage diverse or neurodiverse or diverse abilities in the classroom. So until that is done, there should be cut off. Then we then have 54% that say they are against the cut-off. And the reason be the inclusion, inclusive part of it. Education is a human right. The Constitution make that provision that people should have education, and our job is to make sure we have enough facility and space for them, and making sure that everybody learn according to their ability. So instead of doing the easy work, we should do the adaptive work and make sure that everyone continue education until they finish senior high. Right? In that way, we can be producing and preparing citizens that can, and they set examples like Zimbabwe and co. That's done. You can see the literacy rate is very high in Zimbabwe. So based on that, we have to tread cautiously, not to say go this way and that way. But clearly, there's a need for us to, as part of our curriculum reform and revision, we need to be looking at different pathways in our education system, because one size does not fit all. And if you look at the system we are running from BCE to senior high, BCE is not really a high-stake examination. It's not supposed to be. But we have made it like a high-stake examination. And one of our professors always say that because we are poor, we use the BCE to tell some people not to go to continue education. Right? You're not good enough to continue. Instead of telling them, right, thank you, what you've learned to, this is the pathway you need to go. Right, based on your ability, and we will support you to grow. We say, okay, we don't have enough space at the SHS level, so you're not good enough. So we have stopped people from continuing their education because we are poor nation. But we've gone beyond that. Ghana is not poor. As somebody said recently, what we need is leadership, right? Leaders with character, to make sure that we can maximize the scarce resources we have for the benefit of everybody. I think that's what argument they put across, and making sure that we give opportunity for every child to continue education up to at least senior high level, and that is good for the country.
So no cut-off points.
No cut-off points.
So one interesting thing that came across was when I remember that lady. She was a student
lady from one of the class schools.
Who was using herself as an example that he was a Votech student or something.
Yeah, she's a Votech now. Yeah.
One lesson that came out, that if we are not going to use cutoff, then we must create a system that will be supportive enough.
Okay.
We should also be very careful to avoid labeling. Labeling, where they say, oh, you are not good, so you go to Votech.
Okay.
So we need to put in structures to avoid labeling.
Okay.
In that case, then we can create a platform where each person can develop according to his or her potentials.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting one. Because so it means that by you saying there's no cutoff, it's possible. Now somebody who did terribly in the BC, didn't perform so well, could end up, would you still have that structure where they could still end up in Achimota, for example? Because that was one of the biggest challenges we had.
That's why we say that...
so the labeling part, because you said there's no labeling.
That's why we're saying that there should be different pathways.
Okay.
Right. We are not there yet as a country. What we have at the moment is we have senior high schools, we have senior high technical schools, and then we have technical institutes. And then government is putting a lot of resources in apprenticeship, for example. So there are various pathways. In some countries, they say you need to stay in education or work-related education until you turn 18. So clearly, a pathway is created. You finish O-level or you finish senior high, you continue to A-levels, and then that takes you to university, or you continue to further education where you do vocational skills and all of that, like plumbing, tailoring, graphic design, all of that, media. Media is taken as a vocation, and the young people are trained. By the time you can operate, guys, sound engineering.
There's a lot of work that's technical.
You can do technical, you can do, but in our we have limited it to carpentry and bricklaying, right? And that is incentivizing.
So that's very interesting, and that's very interesting because if historically. If we get to see the Basel missionaries and who came initially, they did not just concentrate on carpentry and others. It was broader, and development all through. If you study all the reforms, previous reforms, they've not been restricted to this. But for some reason, practically, it does appear that is the notion. So it's assumed that if you cannot do well in school, then go and do technical course. If you cannot do well in school, then go and do that. I don't think that's not how we should go, actually. And that's why we are very much concerned about the labeling issue. So we need to critically think through strategies that will make people willingly. I remember when I was a student, there was someone I was engaging in the UK trying to find out why his ambitions were in school. And he said, I'm not a university material, so I'll go to college. That's what he told me. And he said that with
passion and conviction.
That is it. So to get to a stage where our young ones can come out and say, look, this is where I want to do, and do that confidently, that is where I think that we need to go.
So if you create pathways, a child can decide, all right, I have finished SHS. I want to go into apprenticeship, maybe in media. We'll be attached to Radio Gold. Radio Gold is affiliated to further higher education institution. They stay here Monday to Friday. Weekends, they may go for 1 day tutorial. At the end, it may take them about 7 years or 5 years, but they also end up with a higher qualification. But then they are trained on the skills too. Right? That should be another one pathway. There will be a pathway people go straight to further education and then learn. In some countries, they have even law, they have an apprenticeship. Right? And they call something T-level in the UK, where you can go accountancy, you can become accountant through T-level. It's a technical training. You spend 80 hours of your 80% of your time in the classroom, 20% of the time in the workplace. Okay. And you also finally get but based on your interests. Okay. As Prof say, if the pathways are created, parents are well educated, because one of the things that happened to us generally on our beautiful continent, Africa, is that we whip our children into submission to take the path that we want them to take, right? I'm a disappointed engineer, so I want my child to be engineer, right? So the qualification and the interest I didn't do, I want my child to be there.
To do that.
To do that, and at the end, that gives us satisfaction. I say, oh, my child is an engineer. Okay. But generally speaking, that's not what the child wanted to do, right? So with time, our curriculum is designed. The system is created. These pathways are there. Nobody will finish BCE and say, I have finished school. Like my friends on the way to Cape Coast who selling coconut. One time I stop and buy coconut, I ask them, oh, why are you not in school? They say, we have finished school. Right? Which level? They say, BEC, GSS. Right? And I tell them, me, I'm still in school. I'm just going to school. All right? But that's the notion they have. They have finished school. They could not continue. And they say, oh, you finished.
So they're not clear on the pathway. Once you decide not to go into secondary, where do I go?
Where do I go? Okay. But at the moment, we don't have that pathway clearly defined. It's either you go to technical vocational institution or you go to SHS. That's all we know. Okay. But then apprenticeship route is also there. Can we formalize that? I think that's what government is doing. Apprenticeship program is there to help. That people can choose. I have grade 6, 7, but I want to go to work straight away. Okay. You know, because at the end of the day, if I have my education, where will I end up to at? I'm going to work. Okay. So if I can have a pathway fully supported, and what we need to do as a nation, finally, that those apprentices should be attached to educational institution, that they can be receiving some of the soft skills, all right, like a business plan development and all of that, so that when they finish, they can set up themselves and be able to run it effectively and efficiently. The more we get that point, Ghana has arrived.
Well, Dr. Sam AWUKU and Professor George Katie ODURO are in studio with me. We need to take our last break. And come and conclude with them on this discussion, because there are a few questions that I'll ask, very brief questions, to conclude our discussion this morning. If you just join us, we're having a discussion on the National Education Forum. Where do we go from here? Where are we first? How do we build on what is good? And how do we fix what is wrong? That's the question that they were supposed to answer. But for you, my listener, I want you to create unforgettable memories. Transform your living room and bedroom into a sanctuary with the stunning selection of sofas, couches, dressers, dining sets, center tables, and a wide range of beds and mattresses and other home soft furnishings that Ashroom has to offer. Additionally, this season, Ashroom wants you to shop and save up to 30% discount. Up to 30% discount, and discover the perfect blend of style, comfort, and affordability at Ashroom's exclusive furniture promotion. So if you're planning to buy any of the things Ashroom sells, this is the best time. You get up to 30% discount. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Take advantage of our mega discount promotion, up to 30% on selected products.